Hospitality Director here at the Precious Blood Renewal Center. And I'd like to invite my friend, Christen Cota, who is Pastoral Associate at Holy Family Parish here in North Kansas City. So welcome. Welcome to our center, and I'm so glad you're able to join us today. Christen is here. She is going to help us teach you to how to make St. Joseph's bread.
Yes.
So, do you want to tell me a little bit about your experience with the St. Joseph's bread?
I'd be happy to. As I told you earlier, I have a real strong devotion to St. Joseph, and a few years back I learned about a tradition that started in Sicily ages ago in honor of St. Joseph, where for his feast day they make St. Joseph altars, and I know you're going to explain that a little bit more. And one of the customary foods for that altar is bread, shaped in various shapes that have to do with either St. Joseph or Christ or Lent or, various religious themes. And so I like this shape. It's going to be in the shape of his staff with lilies at the top because of the tradition of showing St. Joseph like that. So,
well, I'm excited to get started. And yes, she mentioned the St. Joseph tables, which here in Kansas City, primarily in northeast region of Kansas City, and up north here, there's a lot of parishes who put on St. Joseph tables, St. Joseph altars. And as Christen said, there's tons of different shapes of bread, different types of bread, along with different types of cookies and all kinds of goodies and food that come along. And what's really interesting about it is that every piece of food, every piece of dessert, every little thing has some kind of meaning to St. Joseph behind it. So the bread is very, traditional in St. Joseph Day celebrations. And they're made in different shapes, as Christen said. But the food is wonderful. And it is on March 19th. So with, the pandemic and everything, I don't know how parishes are going to be able to celebrate that this year. But I know in the past, there's been people from everywhere that come and enjoy that tradition. So,
and bread in particular, when this started in Sicily, it was to honor St. Joseph after they asked for his intercession when they were experiencing a true famine, and when their prayers weren't answered, part of the tradition is to make an abundance of food. So what is not consumed on his feast date is then given to the poor. Yes. And bread is such a staple.
Yes, it is.
In that.
And if you have ever been to a St. Joseph table or altar, you will see at the very beginning of the table, of the altar, that there are 4 empty place servings for a family. And usually there's a parade from after Mass to the church hall, and that's where the table is in the church hall, and they always have a family or some children that represent that family, and they lead the parade, so to speak, to the church hall to begin eating. So that's where they sit at the table, because St. Joseph invited everyone, just like Jesus, to the table.
Yes.
And that's how we are here at the Renewal Center. We invite everyone is welcome to our table. So again, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy this. And we're going to kind of see what you brought here with us today.
Sure. Well, this is a delicious bread recipe. It's a very eggy type bread. It's very rich, and it's just delicious, warm with a little butter on it. So we're going to start today. We have already on the stovetop melted 1 stick of butter and a half a cup of milk, and then let that return to room temperature before starting to mix all the ingredients together. And so what you start out with here in this large bowl is 1.5 cups of flour, and then also you add to that the sugar, which is 1/3 cup of sugar.
1/3 cup of sugar.
And then also you add a half teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
So you mix that together well.
Okay.
To that, you're going to add your your butter and milk combination. Again, this is 1 stick of butter melted and a half a cup of milk.
And this is what it needs to look like. And before you pour it in, you might want to check to make sure it is at room temperature, and this is.
It takes about 20 minutes or so to go back to room temperature after you've melted that together.
So I'm going to go ahead and pour it in.
In addition to that, you're going to add 1 packet of yeast, which has been sprinkled on top of a half a cup of water that has been heated to a temperature of 105 to 110 degrees. Any type of kitchen thermometer can be used for that. You add just a pinch of sugar to that water, and then open the yeast packet, sprinkle it over the top, and let it set for about 10 minutes. This helps that yeast get activated, which of course is what gives the bread its rise. So we'll add that in as well.
Okay.
The whole thing, yeast and water.
There we go.
And then 2 eggs. Okay. So you stir this together and get it good and mixed and smooth. It takes about 2 minutes if you're using a mixer, which you can definitely use. Once you start adding all the rest of the flour, it does get quite stiff and kind of hard to stir. So if you've got a mixer, or particularly a mixer with a dough hook, that makes it even easier. So you would stir this for about 2 minutes.
And this is approximately
4 cups.
4 cups right here.
Yep. So after you get this nice and smooth, you would add the remaining flour half a cup at a time.
Okay.
Not all at once, or approximate half a cup. You don't want to add it all at once because it will get too stiff too quickly. So if we want to start doing that.
Sure. There's about a half.
Okay, and you get that half incorporated or almost incorporated.
Right.
And you can do another one.
Do another half. More or less, that
Yeah,
is.
as long as you have the measurement of the total correct.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's exactly a half of a cup at a time.
You know, one of my favorite parts about going to see the St. Joseph table, even as a kid, is all the different shapes of bread. You know, and there's some that are real colorful. They add color in them, or they'll add. I think there's some that add raisins to make different. You know, decorations. I mean,
I've seen a lot of recipes that call for them to be coated with sesame seeds.
Yes, sesame seeds.
At the end.
Yeah, and so those are good as well.
Yes.
So, yes, nothing like a nice warm piece of bread and butter right out of the oven.
Yeah.
Also, this is an old kind of tradition that my mom had. One tradition my mother had, us as kids, she would take us to the St. Anthony's, St. Joseph table. Well, back then it was Assumption for all the all those out there that know what I'm talking about, Assumption down in Northeast, well, that was my home parish, which is now St. Anthony's. And what they would do, they would give out little knots of bread in a little plastic bag. And you're to take that home, stick it in your freezer, because the bread has been blessed by the priest. And it's supposed to bring you good luck and an abundance of food. Yeah, and blessing. So my mom would get that. Okay.
So occasionally, once you are adding more flour, you need to add more milk. In all, you will be adding another third of a cup is what I found to make the dough just right.
Okay.
At some point, it's also helpful just to get in with your hands.
Yeah. I was
if
getting
you like
ready
me to do, oh yeah, go for it. Our hands are clean.
They are clean. Okay.
I also wanted to mention that one of the reasons why I thought about being a part of this today was we were looking at ways to celebrate the year of St. Joseph. Pope Francis in December declared a year of St. Joseph. Anytime a pope does this, declare a year of a certain focus is a way to help us focus for that year in a particular way, on a particular saint or a particular virtue. We'll go ahead and just put the rest of that in. And he chose St. Joseph, and I was reading his letter to all of us when he declared this about why he decided to do that. And he was thinking about, during this pandemic, here we go, all the people who have done so much behind the scenes to help people in need, whether that's our medical workers or sanitation or paramedics,
firefighters,
all those people,
police,
all those people who are behind the scenes working,
grocery store, people.
And they are a lot of times unseen, and that got the Holy Father thinking about St. Joseph, because he's many times overlooked and unseen.
Yes.
When talking
about...
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes, you're fine.
Kind of want everyone to see this big ball here of dough. So we're gonna kind of knead it. I always like to hit it.
So after, you should knead it about 5 minutes.
Right.
And that helps the gluten and all those things
mix together
and start to form. And after you've done that for 5 minutes, you'll put it in a bowl that has been coated in butter to go ahead and let it rise for 2 hours. And we have here another bowl with dough that has risen for 2 hours.
2 hours.
Since it's been made. And as you can see, it's more than doubled. So what we have here is the dough that we made earlier. It's rested in a warm place for about 2 hours. It takes to double in size.
Right.
And so what we do now is we need to beat that down. It's a good opportunity, just keep punching it, good opportunity to take out some aggression.
Right.
And then we will turn that out onto our countertop that is lightly dusted with flour so it doesn't stick. Okay, so it's still very moist, so we want to make sure we get enough flour on it that it doesn't stick to the counter. And we continue to press down on it, and eventually we will want to roll this out into a rectangle. It's always good to put a little flour on your rolling pin too. Roll this out into a rectangle that's about 12 inches by 16 inches. It's a very soft, very easy to use dough.
And our measurements are approximate.
Yes.
So I know as far as I'm concerned in the kitchen, I've dealt with all kinds of stuff, and now, it's like we kind of just eyeball it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is pretty good here. What do you think?
I think it's perfect.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that looks and feels really good.
Wonderful. So now what you would do is you start rolling it tight from this side into a tube or a log, whatever you want to call it. Trying to make sure that it is the same thickness all the way across. And then on the seam here, just kind of pinch it together. Do you want to work it from that end? It doesn't stay together perfectly, but if you pinch it, it helps it bake together.
Okay.
Leave that seam then on the bottom side. Turn under the ends too. Okay, now at this point it's time to shape it into whatever shape you're going to do for St. Joseph's Feast Day. I like to do that directly on the pan, so you don't have to transfer it after you've already shaped it. We've sprayed the pan so it doesn't stick. And for this you need a very sharp knife. So now we're going to cut this and shape it. So it will rise again for an hour into the shape before we bake it.
Right.
Believe it or not, this is a hair comb that I use in the kitchen with my bread baking.
Right.
It was brand new and it's been washed multiple times since using it.
Sure.
And the first thing you do is you just make some X's about 1/4 of an inch deep. On the top, it makes a nice little decoration.
Right.
For the staff of St. Joseph. And then the next thing you would do, and I have my notes here because I want to make sure I get this right, is we cut about a 1/2 inch deep 2 slits down on the top but kind of on the edges. About a 1/2 inch deep. And then one on the other side as well. Okay. Then you're going to do about 3 inches apart, 1/2 inch slits across the top as well. And right now you're probably wondering, what on earth is she doing with that dough? But I promise you, it makes it look wonderful.
It really does.
Gives it
It looks good.
Some texture.
Yes.
And then I'm going to come down to this end and I'm going to cut all the way through this time 2 6-inch approximately cuts into this bread, making as close as possible 3 strips.
3 strips.
Here at the top. And this is the part we're going to shape into the lilies at the top of St. Joseph's staff. And we're going to do that just by turning them around the side ones and pinching it back to the main staff of the bread.
Very easy.
And it's very
really
easy.
Very easy.
It's much easier than people will think it was for you when they see it.
Yes.
And then this top one you just curl down and pinch, okay?
Okay.
And you pinch them together. You can always do more slits on the side if you like, or you can just leave it just like that.
I think it's pretty like that.
I think so.
Yeah.
So then you would cover this loosely with a kitchen towel.
Let's show them like this.
And
Isn't that beautiful?
I think it's pretty even that
too.
way, right?
I do too. Exactly.
And you cover it with a towel to rise in a warm place for another hour.
And once it's risen, that hour,
Yeah.
you're going to stick it in the oven.
Before you do, you'll beat up an egg.
Okay, before that, you're going to beat up an
And
egg.
brush that all over the resin dough. And that's what's going to give it a nice dark brown color.
Yeah, and it kind of gives it a little bit of a shine, too.
It does. It does.
Yes, it really does.
And you put it in the oven at 375 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. Mine always comes out good at 25.
Yeah, it kind of depends on your oven.
It does. It
So,
does.
yeah, so 375 for about 20 to 25 minutes, maybe 30 tops, depending on your oven.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, you take it out, let it cool for a few minutes, and then you enjoy. So we're going to show you what this looks like after it's been baked. Well, guys, this is our finished product. So this is the Staff of St. Joseph bread. So it's shiny. It's shaped so beautifully. The lilies on each side, and it's just beautiful. And the smell is just wonderful. The smell of bread baking is absolutely wonderful. So I can't wait to dip into this. Christen, this smells so good. Are you ready?
I am so ready.
Okay. Let's cut a piece of this wonderful bread. And look, you guys, it just looks wonderful. You can't beat homemade bread.
You can't.
I don't, you just can't.
There's nothing like it.
No. So we are going to have a piece of bread. There we go. And we got some wine here. You can't forget your wine, okay? So before we eat into our bread and drink our wine, why don't we say a prayer?
That'd be wonderful.
For St. Joseph and for
Okay.
everyone out there. Again, thank you guys. And thank you, Christen, for coming over to the Renewal Center. I had a blast. This has been wonderful.
I've had a blast as well.
And not only, I have a new friend.
Yes.
So this is great.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming. So, if you'd like to start.
Okay. To you, O blessed Joseph, do we come in our afflictions, and having implored the help of your most holy spouse, we confidently invoke your patronage also.
Through that charity which bound you to the Immaculate Virgin Mother of God, and through the paternal love with which you embrace the child Jesus, we humbly beg you graciously to regard the inheritance which Jesus Christ has purchased by his blood, and with your power and strength to aid us in our necessities.
O most watchful guardian of the Holy Family, defend the chosen children of Jesus Christ. O most loving Father, ward off from us every contagion of error and corrupting influence. O our most mighty protector, be kind to us, and from heaven assist us in our struggle with the power of darkness. As once you rescued the child Jesus from deadly peril, so now protect God's holy church from the snars of the enemy and from all adversity. Shield, too, each one of us by your constant protection, so that, supported by your example and your aid, we may be able to live piously, to die in holiness, and to obtain eternal happiness in heaven. Amen. Amen.
So here we go.
Okay.
We're going to have our bread. We're going to have our wine. We invite you to come by anytime at the Precious Blood Renewal Center when we're back open to come and have bread with us. So we're going to kind of take this off for just a second, and we're going to have our bread. That's good. And cheers. So
Cheers.
good. Chin chin, as you say in Italian.
There we go.
So this bread is so good. And as a little girl, my dad used to make homemade wine, and we would get to dip the bread in his wine, and he'd let us have a little dip. So I'm going to do that right now. Just kind of dip it and have some.
Thinking about your dad, huh?
Very
That's
good.
wonderful.
So glad to have you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.